Welcome back to another comparison video. In this video, we're going to be looking at American Ballet Theatre's Gillian Murphy and New York City Ballet's Teresa Reichlen perform the Grande Pas de Deux in Swan Lake. So they're playing the role of Odile. So when we think of New York City Ballet versus ABT, obviously we think of New York City Ballet being heavily influenced by Balanchine, so we're going to see some quite jazzy Broadway influences. We think of that fast tempo, playing with the musicality, slightly off balance with like maybe hips pushing forwards. We don't always see that really traditional classical alignment. However, we do with ABT. They have a wonderful mix of training and influences in their dancing, but overall it is quite traditionally classical in their technique and their placement, and they do a lot more classical repertoire as well. So that's generally what we think of both companies, but what I find really interesting about this comparison is that both choreographies are very different. So the ABT choreography is by Kevin McKenzie, and there's a lot of drama. We get to see that lovely American athleticism, but there's still this lovely rounded classical quality to the choreography and the dancing. However, with Peter Martin's choreography for the New York City Ballet, it's much slower, it's much more elegant, the movements are more languid and delicate, and yet the intrinsic style of the company that we talked about still shines through. So as I mentioned before, New York City Ballet's choreography is much slower, so I couldn't use the same piece of music for both. So what I've done is cut them up into sections so we can compare specific movements between both dancers. Starting off with the beginning here, we have very different arms from ABT. You can see Gillian Murphy, she really uses her upper back, really curves forwards. Then we have one big flap of the wings followed by a few ripples, whereas you can see Teresa is a lot more delicate. Then just before they go into the arabesque, I love that Gillian Murphy has this really mischievous look in her eye, one wing over the top, one wing underneath. Whereas Teresa, she has both arms, they float down, they're so delicate, there's almost this fragility to her. Also, I just want to look at the different way they wrap their arms around Siegfried. So you can see with Gillian, her arms come up, she does one flap, and she almost plunges into an embrace. She kind of falls with some weight and then picks everything up and looks up to her hand. So again, you've got that added drama. But with Teresa, like we said before, it's much softer, it's more elegant and delicate. Her embrace, she cushions it, so she starts fast and then her arms softly curl around him. So once again, a perfect example of how one dancer is playing the role of a mischievous, quite playful character, and the other one is impersonating the delicate, soft qualities of Odette. Now I want to look at this moment, this pivot on the knee, because I think this is very telling of both styles. So if you look at Gillian, you'll notice that even though the arm is quite far behind, she still has quite a typically traditional classical alignment. She has a lovely cambray, the shoulders are down, she's using her epaulement here. But if we look at Teresa, we can see that the hand position is a lot more angular, that separation from the fingers, shoulders aren't as low. You can even see that the hips are pushed slightly more forwards. Again, very typical of that kind of jazzy Broadway style. And I just want to take a moment here to appreciate Gillian's incredible back bend. Absolutely gorgeous. She does it so effortlessly. So next we go into the promenade section. You'll notice New York City Ballet's choreography pulls up straight into an attitude arabesque, and they have a promenade. Whereas with ABT, we have a very difficult balance on point in arabesque, and imagine how tired Gillian will be at this point in the ballet, into a penché and then into a promenade. So in my opinion, the ABT choreography here is a lot more challenging. It really pushes the dancer, whereas the NYCB choreography has more of a focus on the aesthetic, this soft, delicate, elegant, almost fragile quality. I love this moment here during the développé. Again, two very different styles. With NYCB, I really love that the connection between Odile and Siegfried is a lot more intimate, and Teresa really draws on the sweetness of Odette's character to trick Siegfried, but it's sprinkled with flashes of Odile's mischievous character. Then if you look at Gillian, the emphasis is far more on drama. I just love this section here. She has a développé devant, but she falls back into Siegfried. She's really flirting with him. And then as he goes to embrace her, she teases him because she opens out her arms and she runs away like she wants him to chase her. In the NYCB choreography, there is a small amount of chase, but it's just a lot more subtle. And now we go into the last section, and I just wanted to emphasize how much slower Peter Martin's choreography is. I've had to cut it up into sections here because this part is really drawn out a lot more than with ABT. But if we just look at the penché section onwards, both have absolutely beautiful penchés, really gorgeous, but then they both pull up into their pirouettes. With New York City Ballet, we have a fouette finger turn, we have 4 pirouettes, and then a cloche into an attitude arabesque and a strong finish. However, with ABT, again, the choreography is just really pushing the dancer. And then I think also Gillian Murphy, she's an incredible dancer. She's amazing at pirouettes. She goes for 8 pirouettes, but not just 8 pirouettes. If you look at the last few, so she starts with arms in first, then she lifts them up to 5th position, and for her last pirouette she throws her head back, which is so difficult for your balance because your eye line is really important wherever you're spotting. So to completely change that eye line and bring it up but to remain on balance is extremely impressive. So 2 very different styles in terms of choreography, but I still think it's wonderful that the intrinsic styles of both companies still shine through. Like I said, even though New York City Ballet is playing for a much more demure kind of feel, you can still see those jazzy off-balance moments. And with ABT, the choreography really pushes the dancer. We have very big movements, very strong accents, and yet there is still this roundness and traditionally classical technique and style. So those are my thoughts comparing New York City Ballet with ABT. Both Gillian and Teresa are astonishingly beautiful and mesmerising dancers. I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments of how you thought both dancers compared. In my next video, we're going to be comparing the Bolshoi with the Mariinsky. So stay tuned for that. If you don't already, please do like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.